Welcome to today's video. We're talking today with Shawn O'Donnell, and Shawn and I are going to discuss traveling in Alaska. We're going to talk about a couple of options. We're going to talk about accessibility. To start with, Shawn, you want to give us a little bit of your background?
So basically, I'm a lifelong Alaskan, and I've been all over the state, from the very, very tip all the way down to Ketchikan, the other tip, and pretty much anywhere in between. I really enjoy and pretty much live in the outdoors. Pretty much the Alaskan lifestyle. I like to camp and fish and hike and mountain bike and kayak and ski and everything else that goes along with it. Fat tire biking, pretty just about anything you can think of that's not motorized powered. I like to enjoy in the outdoors. I've stayed at a lot of different lodgings, pretty much just about every campground you can think of, all over the Denali National Park, a lot of the roadside national parks. And so over a lifetime of doing that, I've pretty much gained a knowledge of places to stay, eat, enjoy, and I feel like I have a knowledge that I can share with other people.
Okay, well, very nice. And I have to say this, it was kind of interesting because first of all, my wife and I've been to Alaska a couple of times. We've had a couple of trips got canceled due to the pandemic. And you know, Alaska is probably, well, I know Alaska is my favorite destination. I mean, far and away. I think Alaska is probably at the top of the list for my wife as well. And she travels with a wheelchair. And we have found that in general, we've had really good success in Alaska. I interviewed a young lady that's paraplegic the other day, and we talked about it, and she was absolutely amazed. She was in Talkeetna, and she called for a taxi or a shuttle, and they showed up with something that had a lift and was set up to handle a wheelchair. And it was she said the person that was driving it asked her why she was surprised, and she says, well, he says, isn't that the law? And she said, yes, but you're one of the few people that understand that. But we talked about the Alaskan Railroad and you know, the things that, you know, that make Alaska so enjoyable and so accessible. So we're going to talk in this video, we're going to talk about going north from Anchorage, you said, correct?
Yes, sir. North from Anchorage and then south from Anchorage. So about a week, real basic beginner itinerary, just catching the highlights.
Okay, so we'll start with going north.
Okay.
So let me throw the scenario up here.
Uh-huh.
I have flown all day. I fly into Anchorage, and I get into Anchorage in what is the middle of the afternoon in Anchorage, but it's like 9 o'clock at night. So sure. I get off my plane. I come out of the airport, and where do we start from there?
So yeah, I think that's the thing is it's quite a distance to fly up here, and a lot of people get here and they want to get in their hotel and they're knockered, or maybe they're really excited and they kind of want to just get the lay of the land and look around. Anchorage is maybe not one of the great cities of the world, but it is a fairly clean and a fairly safe city, and there is a little bit of a sampling of stuff to kind of whet your appetite. And Alaska is all around. As you drive around the outskirts of Anchorage, you will see a lot of beautiful mountains in the ocean. So just in the downtown area, there's a plethora of really nice lodgings, some really top tier hotels, you know, all the big chains. There's some really excellent local restaurants, some are serving kind of our fresh fish and fresh seafood that really known here in Alaska. It's very, you know, very accessible for people that have mobility issues, that not an issue at all. Everything's ADA compliant. And starting right from downtown, one of the gems of our city is the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail. And it basically starts from downtown and goes around the entire outskirts of Anchorage all the way up to what we call Point Warrenzoff. It's probably all in length, probably about 13 miles. It's totally paved, nice and wide, nice bike path, and it goes right on the shore of the ocean. And it starts kind of in a downtown urban environment, and it ends in a completely wooded, wild environment with moose, bear, berries, everything that you can imagine out in the middle of a forest of Anchorage. And a lot of people in the summertime will ride their bikes or their rollerblade, or they'll just take their kids on a stroller. And it's a great, real gem. If you leave the downtown area and you go up to what we call the hillside, so up in the hill, it's a lot of residential area. We have the Alaska Zoo. Same thing, has nice, flat, wide, gravel trails that a wheelchair can easily move around and access, and it has a really good sampling of a lot of the wild animals and some domesticated animals and some animals from around the world. There's actually snow leopards there, Siberian tigers, But for Alaska, it's actually not a half bad zoo, and it's actually worth a really good stop. You can travel up the hill from there, and you can go up to what's called Flat Top. There's a big parking lot there. It's part of Chugach State Park. And that right there has a tremendously beautiful view of the Cook Inlet, the Alaska Range, the Talkeetna Mountains, the Tordrillo Mountains. You're basically surrounded 360 degrees by mountains, and then in between is lakes, rivers, and the ocean. And from there, there's actually a couple of pretty decent, not too hilly, wide gravel trails that you could easily take, with a person who was able to help you, a wheelchair or electric wheelchair or a scooter with no issue at all. Not all the way for several miles, but certainly a decent distance to get out, and get some fresh air, maybe pick some berries, look at the vegetation, and maybe even catch some wildlife.
Okay. Well, I personally don't want to catch a bear, but I couldn't resist. But yeah, and I will say this: our experience is that in Alaska, that the trails and things are much better than I expected. When we were in Juneau, we went out to Mendenhall, and you can get almost all the way to is it Nugget Falls? I think it's Nugget.
think so. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's Nugget Falls. In the wheelchair, my wife went down, and then there was like a bump she didn't want to deal with, so she turned around and went back. But
Right.
yeah, very nice. Okay, so there's a lot to see, and I have to concur. Just coming out of the airport, it would have been 2 years ago. This May coming up, it was amazing, the view leaving the airport and driving into Anchorage and all the mountains. And of course, we were there right at the end of May, so everything's still snow capped up high, and it was just, like I said, Alaska. For those that have never been, I would say that Alaska is the most beautiful place that you'll probably ever go and see, and so much of it is so untouched, so that you can see it. That's, like I said, I'm a huge Alaska fan. Okay, so now we wake up. After our first night in Alaska, and we have a week. So where are we headed?
So you're going to drive north from there along the Glen Highway. And up north of there is what's called the Matanuska-Susitna Valley, or the Matsu Valley, or the Valley. It's kind of a bedroom community area of Anchorage. A lot of people commute back and forth. It's about 40 miles. But just to the north of that is the Talkeetna Mountains, a really beautiful range of mountains that are made out of granite. And likewise, they offer a tremendous amount of both summertime and wintertime recreation. There's a personal area that I'm really fond of, though. If you drive up the road, which is completely paved, there's a nice big parking lot. You can drive right up to Independence Mine State Park. They have lots of nice trails that you can tour around this old gold mine that closed like in the 1930s or 40s. A lot of the buildings are preserved and still standing. Some of the mine shaft stuff's in ruins, but there's interpretive signs. And the surrounding area is just gorgeous. It's a big, beautiful green bowl, green valley that you can enjoy there. And if you want, you can actually, when you're done with your time there, you can drive up a gravel road up and over the pass itself, and you can continue through Hatcher Pass, through the Talkeetna Mountains, and that'll take you back out to the Parks Highway. And the Parks Highway currently takes you continuing north onto your trail. So that's just an option. You don't have to go up there, but I highly recommend it. I think it's kind of off the beaten path, and not a lot of tourists, A, know it's there, or B, enjoy it.
And not a lot of tourists is good for improves wildlife viewing, and I'm kind of like you seem to be. I like to get away from the crowds of people. I don't want to have to fight for place to stand, sit, walk, etc.
Right.
Okay, so where might we want to spend our first night then, as we're going north, or do we still have more north to go?
No, so funny you mentioned that. So now probably go on to what most people will do is you go to Talkeetna. That's about a 2-hour drive north of Anchorage. It's off a little 13-mile spur road. It's traditionally, it was a town where miners would kind of do their jumping off, and it was just once a train stop. Now there's a road there. They would fly out to their mining claims from there, and it's just turned more into a tourist mecca. A lot of tour buses come there. The Alaska Railroad stops there on its tours. But for such a small little town, which has an extremely unique Alaskan character. I can't describe it or put it in words, but once you get there, you'll see. But there's a tremendous amount of really good restaurants there, some really healthy or organic bakery. There's a local brewery, which actually microbrewery, if you like microbrews or beers, that is probably one of the best in the state, I would say. A person can get around that town, as you said, quite easily with a wheelchair. You can go down and view the Susitna River. And not that I'm endorsing one lodging over the other, but the Talkeetna, Alaska Lodge there sits up on a hill, and it has a big grassy knoll area, and it has a deck, and it has probably, if not the best, one of the best easy viewing of the Denali and the major mountains, the Alaska Range right there. It's a really comfortable lodge, completely ADA compliant, elevators, the whole shebang, good restaurants. And that's just worth a stop. There's a lot of nice little shops there. A couple of activities, and I enjoyed doing this because it gave me a chance to learn some things. You can actually take a flight seeing tour depending upon your mobility, and people help you into an airplane. But I called them and they said, yeah, you don't need to take your wheelchair onto the aircraft. We just get you on the aircraft and you fly around the Alaska Range just like everybody else. And we're near it. And that's one possibility. Another possibility is there's a jet boat river tour that takes you up one of the river tributaries. Same thing, with a little bit of assistance, a person, certain people would be able to be helped on and off that boat and enjoy that. And it's been around for a very long time, and it gets rave reviews. Those are probably the top two activities that I would recommend to Talkeetna.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that sounds like maybe either the afternoon we get to Talkeetna or the next morning we have that to do. So let's say that we've done one or the other. The flight thing, let me ask, does it fly out around Denali?
Yeah. Actually, depending on what company, and there's actually several companies, you will basically pick your itinerary. So they have different itineraries, like, how far you want to go, how much time you want to spend in the air, what you want to see specifically. Some even land actually on the glacier, which is pretty exciting for people. So it does, but it basically, everybody wants to see the great one, right? So everybody flies around that. And I don't mean Wayne Gretzky, by the way.
Yes, I didn't know what you meant. Okay, so maybe we did a jet boat one day, and then the next morning we did the flight thing, or vice versa, depending on the weather. And that's one of the things I guess everybody needs to understand about Alaska, is Alaska can have very rapidly varying weather. So
Yes.
and if the fog is in or it's low, cloudy, you're not going to go flight seeing around Denali. Now it could be that you get there in the afternoon and the weather stinks for going to Denali, but the river boat the jet boat might be available. The next morning you could have perfect weather to go fly around Denali. So you have to. The one thing I would say, and I see what you think of this, but I would encourage people that when they make travel plans to Alaska, that you have some flexibility built into your schedule. Don't be dead set.
Yes. It's funny that you said that, because pretty much all the clients that I'm working with right now, they'll send me what they want to do, or they have a basic itinerary lined out. And like me, if I go to Italy, I want to see everything. I want to see everything. The truth of the matter is, unless you have a very long time, you can't see it all. And I think more often than not, what happens is people come here, they see some of it, and they're like, this is pretty cool. I've got to come back and I'll see the rest of it. I think of it as like the basic class, and then when you get back for your second Alaska trip, you do your advanced class, and then maybe an advanced class. Because, Southeast is, Alaska is just one vacation, one tour unto itself. South Central's another, the interior's another, and then from where you can fly from there, that's a whole other ball of wax there. So you just can't see it all. I encourage people to kind of slow down, allow for time, because you're going to have your camera out the whole time as you're driving around Alaska or on the train. You just are. And if you are just go, I think no place is more true as a statement is it's the journey, not the destination. And that really describes an Alaskan vacation. The journey is the vacation. Once you stop for the night somewhere, there's things to do, but part of the drive, and this is for me, for living here the same way, is part of your experience. It really is.
Yep. And what I would suggest for people that can do this, I did it when on my last trip. We drove from Skagway up to Emerald Lake, which is an amazing trip.
Amazing.
But what I do now is I carry an inexpensive action camera with a windshield mount.
Oh,
and I plug it into the car and I just let it run, because as you were saying, Shawn, what you see out the window is just so amazing. And if you if you stop to take every picture you want, you will never go more than about 20 miles,
no,
because
no,
you're like, okay, wait a minute, that last was beautiful. Oh, wait a minute, here's one that's even
yeah,
better.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would suggest that is a pretty useful tour if you're driving yourself or you're going with somebody where it's a small group and they'll let you put something on the windshield just to record what's out the windshield. That is just one of those really handy little tips for travel in Alaska. Okay, so we've done Talkeetna. We went around the sites. We did the flight thing and the boat ride.
Mhm,
We enjoyed the activity in town. We
mhm,
stayed at that really nice hotel with a great view. So let
mhm,
me let me ask the question. Trying to think about my geography.
mhm.
So the hotel you said that was up on the hill, that would be looking toward the east, toward Denali,
Actually, it'll be looking towards the northwest.
toward the northwest. So
Yes.
then you might want to, if you're there at a time when the sunrise is not like 3 a.m., you
Mhm.
might want to catch that. If you have a clear day, it might make a great photo from the deck as the sun's coming up and
Absolutely.
as Denali's getting lit up. Yeah, that sounds like
Absolutely.
you know one of those moments you don't get very often.
Yes.
Okay, so from Talkeetna, where are we going now?
So if you go up around the corner, and everybody, if you go to Florida, everybody wants to go to Disney World, right? That's the big thing. Disney World, Disney World, and I feel like that area, everybody wants to flock to Denali National Park. I do too. I love it. But there's a little unappreciated gem by a lot of people on the way there, and that's Denali State Park. If you stop on the way there, and it's a great kind of halfway point to kind of get out, stretch your legs a little bit, or there's actually public use cabins that you can rent there. Again, ADA compliant. You can use a wheelchair to go right up in there. But it has if you just want to stretch your legs, stop, or either or, it actually has some really nice paths that you can take a wheelchair on. It goes out over this round trail that goes out to a gigantic overlook of the Alaska Range again. So maybe you didn't stop in Talkeetna, maybe you didn't, maybe you just want another look at that gorgeous mountain if it's out, or maybe you just want to stretch your legs. It goes around this really cute little pond. There's often moose in there eating and drinking and bathing and stuff when I'm there. But it is a really good, probably maybe the nicest campground in the entire state. It's extremely popular with RVers. It's extremely popular with locals, and it's actually really hard to get a spot there. But I just like to throw that in there. It's a really nice little spot, Denali State Park, a couple places to pull over in there.
Okay. Yep.
So,
And it's interesting because that showed up on my radar, and I actually talked about it in one of the videos I did, because I did a video about the 5 areas that make up Alaska, and Denali State Park was one of the things that popped up as I was looking at places to go and see.
mhm.
Okay, so we did that. Now we're heading to the great one. We're going to
Yeah,
go to Denali. Now, if my memory serves me correct, you can't drive into Denali. Is that right?
you can, but only the first 13 miles.
Okay.
There's three. This is kind of a complicated answer. So under normal everyday variety, garden variety is you or I can drive the first 13 miles onto the paved road, and we stop at what's called the Savage River Ranger Station there. You cannot drive your personal vehicle beyond that. However, if you have a reservation for Teklenika Campground, you have a reservation, you can drive to Teklenika, which is 30 something miles in, but you can only drive there and remain there. You can't drive in and out. So one drive in, one drive out. Third option is in the fall every year, which is extremely hard to win. There's a road lottery, and you can drive from end to end in your own personal vehicle. It's after the buses stop running, and it's just one weekend a year, and they allow like I think 600 vehicles total in. You got to put in your name on recreation.gov to try to win a lottery spot. It's extremely difficult, but it's extremely rewarding. I've actually only got to do it once, and I really enjoyed it. Last year, because of COVID, they had some extra ones that he did throughout the summer because there was almost no bus traffic. I would venture to say they might possibly do it again this year because, of course, we're still in a state of reduced tourism without all the large cruise ship passengers and the big package tours.
Yeah. Though I did notice, and I heard from both Princess, I was on a webinar, and I think maybe Holland America is going to open up some of their, both of those are going to operate some land tours. They'll just be land only up in there.
Yes, smart
Yeah.
move, and I think it's definitely called for, and I venture to say I bet they will continue to do that after the, everything kind of goes back to normal, so to speak. So
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So if you want to go into Denali, then we need to make arrangements with somebody that runs a tour bus.
yeah. So this is one of those things. Did a little research. They do have wheelchair accessible buses that go into the park. You just have to basically call and let them know that you need to get on a wheelchair accessible bus, and they will find one that appropriately fits the time and place that you want to do. So you got to do a little pre-planning, but it's totally doable and totally possible.
Okay, well, very good. That's nice to know. And are those individual companies, or does the Park Service run those?
No, so it's a contractor, just like pretty much all national parks. It's a joint venture with Doyon, and I think it's Doyon something Mark. I can't think of the name of it. It's they run a bunch of the lodges, cabins. They run all the buses. They run all the concessionaires, the restaurants, the shops, the whole thing. So there's Park Service employees actually kind of take care of the park, and contractors take care of the people.
Okay. All right. So now we did Talkeetna, and we've made the trip to Denali. I'm thinking that probably by the time we're done with the tour there, that we're going to probably want to stay close, or still have time to drive a little farther.
Yeah, so there's some great lodging, tons of lodging right outside the park entrance there. There's also a lot of restaurants that you can eat, some really top-notch restaurants. One of them is about 20 miles away from the entrance there, and it is probably a 5-star restaurant. I ate there a couple of times ago. I'd highly recommend it. So there's lots of choices for lodging, everything from like a large hotel all the way down to like a rustic lodge in little log cabins. There's like I said, this really fancy restaurant all the way down to just, cheeseburger and fries. And then there's river rafting, there's helicopter tours, there's coffee, there's all the shops, all the little knickknacks and amenities that you would probably expect or want from a, regular tourist destination.
Okay.
And then also,
go ahead.
And also then, a lot of people get hung up on the bus tour, but there's a lot of other little gems that I think a lot of people overlook. There's a lot of really nice moderate trails in the entrance area that some of them you can navigate with a wheelchair on. Also, you can actually take those trails down to a nice paved bike trail that goes right through the gorge where all the shops and restaurants. So literally, like from the entrance of the park, you can go take the trail all the way down to the restaurants, hotels, and back and forth. It's completely paved, completely level. It's really nice. There's the Murray Science and Learning Center that has a lot of interesting exhibits in science and geology and the ecology and stuff of the park. There's the gigantic visitor center, which is really nice. And probably one of my personal favorite, my family and I really love to do this, is to stop at the dog kennels. I don't know if, to my knowledge, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct in this, Denali National Park is the only national park in the entire national park system that maintains dog kennels and uses working dog teams to patrol the park, to remove debris, to do a lot of the work and science work and stuff that they do throughout the winter. So they actually do tours, and you get to visit and learn all about that. And it's really popular, and I highly recommend it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. It's kind of interesting when we went to Skagway, and to mention we went up in Emerald Lake. We stopped at Tootsie Kennels, which is and the lady's name just slipped right out of my head, but she runs in the Iditarod, and she runs a training facility, and I had never realized that Huskies are fairly small dogs.
Yeah.
They're not, because you think about Huskies, people think about like the Siberian Husky, which is a big dog. The Huskies that they run for racing are not, and for dog sleds.
Yeah.
And the other thing is how much those dogs want to go.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
it was funny. She had like 4 teams, and she was training. They were pulling a UTV around, and whichever team was getting harnessed, they had to put the chocks on, put it in gear, put the brakes on to keep that team from dragging it off. And the other 3 teams were all howling it was their turn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So for people that have never had the opportunities going by the dog kennels and getting a chance to meet some of the dogs and see them, they're amazing creatures. Um, okay, so we've done Denali. We spent the night there close. So
Mhm.
where are we going today? Now we're on day what, 4?
Well,
Yeah.
yes and no. I mean, I would probably spend a couple of days, like for example, in Denali. I
Okay.
mean, that's where I'd like to spend a fair amount of my time. So,
Okay. So we spent a
I'll
couple
leave
of
that
days
up.
there.
Yeah, leave that up to the like you said, a little bit of flexibility, but to really enjoy Denali, I would say 2 or 3 days actually. But it
Okay.
just depends on what your schedule is and what time allows and what you really want to see. But along the vein of what you're talking about is continuing on. So the next obvious stop is Fairbanks, the Golden Heart City. And after having lived in a lifetime in Alaska and living Anchorage, I think Fairbanks, especially for wintertime tourism, is probably what a lot of people think of when they think of Alaska. It's just got a lot of the traditional Alaskan activities and stuff. So I actually just came back from a tour in Fairbanks, and I would say that for wintertime tourism, it's pretty much hard to beat, at least in the United States. So there's a series of museums there that I highly recommend if you want to see a lot of Alaskan history, some Alaskan art and artifacts and things like that. There's one that I recommend up at the university. It's called the Museum of the North. Of all things, there is a very large and top-notch, highly rated car museum that has a lot of antique cars that are in this large building. It's really popular that I recommend. And then also another thing that's worth visiting in Fairbanks is called Pioneer Park. It's kind of I guess Alaskan theme amusement park, if you will. There's like a train, and there's a train exhibit talking about the narrow gauge railways that used to go throughout the valleys to all the different gold mines. There's a really good aviation museum there. There's actually an old real life paddle wheeler riverboat that used to ply the Yukon River, and there's an exhibit with inside that. So there's a lot of stuff that you can see actually in that, and that's definitely the stop. I always like to stop there when I'm in Fairbanks.
Okay. Yeah. And for those that are going in the winter, Fairbanks is a good choice for Northern Lights viewing, usually, right?
One of the best in the world, and that's really what people come to see. Everybody wants to see the Northern Lights, and there's literally companies that's all they do. They focus on finding the Northern Lights and getting you to them. I got in a conversation with people at the pool at the hot springs, and they said that the company called them and said, we found some Northern Lights, but we got to drive 3 hours to get to them. Can you leave early? And they're like, yeah. And they drove them all the way 3 hours, but they showed me the pictures and they got a show. Like, I'm talking probably as good a show as you're ever going to get. So that is a very, very big draw to Fairbanks indeed.
Yeah. But that is pretty much a like March to, or actually, I should say like probably October to March timeframe is the better options.
You can view them in September, but of course, the later you go in the winter, you're better because you're getting more darkness. Basically you got to get darkness and you got to get cold air. That's the two big things that the rest of you need. So that's one of the big reasons you can't view them in the summertime. September you can. October's better. January, February is better still, but good cold temps, clear skies, and some good darkness is what you need. So anywhere between about September, April is the aurora viewing season.
Okay, so and for those of you that are on this that are listening that are interested in Northern Lights, it's a winter trip. I have. It's funny. I've seen Northern Lights in Wisconsin where I lived, and again, same kind of situation, cold winter night.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not anywhere near the show you would get farther north. Much of Alaska is, unless you're into really cold weather and have cold weather gear and the things that you need to deal with it, is much better seen in the. And I'm a fan of early spring because let's talk for one thing about one thing about timing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's the difference between May and let's say July or August when it comes to mosquitoes?
A lot. A lot. And then tapering off into September. And this is why the first 2 weeks of September are my personal favorite 2 weeks of the year, because it's kind of cool, crisp mornings, still a little bit of, there's still vegetation, trees. It gets warm throughout the day. Maybe the things are a little bit less crowded, and that's why and there's no bugs, and that's why I enjoy it. But a lot of difference. So if mosquitoes are not your thing, then yeah, earlier or later, not the middle of summer. And the further north you go, the worse it gets. They have bugs on. I went to Yukon River last summer, and I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen mosquitoes like that. Covered my body.
Well, it was interesting because my first experience with northern mosquitoes,
Hmm.
and I think it's a slight exaggeration, but just a slight exaggeration to say they carry off small children.
They, yeah.
They
Well,
might suck them dry.
well, they'll definitely get your Yorkshire Terrier or your little dog, your Chihuahua for sure,
Yeah,
and keep them to their young.
yeah. But I was out fishing. It was up in northern Canada by Coal Lake,
Hmm.
uh, and I was wearing long underwear and a flannel shirt, and we were out fishing, and there were mosquitoes that were getting through the flannel, through the long underwear, and finding blood. And I'm like, what do they
Yep.
got, oil derricks on them? I'm not really
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, I had never seen anything like that, so I was like, okay. So anyway, early spring. Well, and when I say early spring, we're talking about let's say late May
Yeah.
or in September are probably better times to avoid the mosquitoes.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so that's just one of those things to keep in mind. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've done a couple of days at Fairbanks. I mean, not at Fairbanks. We're in
Hmm.
Fairbanks. We
Hmm.
did a couple of days at McKinley. Now we're at Fairbanks, or I shouldn't say McKinley. I should say Denali. Old habits die hard. We're in Fairbanks. Where are we going next?
Well, let's finish off Fairbanks. So there's a couple of really interesting things that you can do kind of on the periphery of Fairbanks. They have a really cool riverboat tour that's like a paddle wheel replica tour that you can do there. You can go up north and see an old gold dredge in the mining town of Fox, which is about 13 miles outside of Fairbanks. That's pretty cool. And then on the way there, there's actually a place where you can pull over and view the Alaska pipeline, and there's interpretive signs, and you can read and learn about all that. So finishing that, where I would continue and probably finish, at least for this thing, is go out to Chena Hotsprings State Recreation Area. There's the river, there's some trails. It's just a really beautiful forested area. But at the end, there's a resort there, Chena Hot Springs Resort, and they have some really cool stuff. They have all kinds of activities for people to do. The hot springs is the big draw. You can actually go. I was just there. There's like a ramp. You can take your wheelchair right down, and there's actually benches right there at the entrance of the hot springs, so anybody can enjoy them. And the grounds are all nice, wide and level. There's nice trails there that you can tour their greenhouses and stuff. And they also have an ice museum, is what they call it. And you can visit that any time of year. They have different times. You make an appointment, you buy your ticket. They have a bar in there, and you can buy an apple martini and drink it out of a glass completely made out of ice. And then they have all these world-class ice art exhibits in there. And they even have suites that you can stay. You can pay $600. They just said this, and you can stay the night in the ice hotel if you so choose, which comes with a room in the hotel if you bail out the whole night and you get too cold. So that is definitely worth visiting, and that's definitely something that I would highly recommend. I think that probably right there will give you a good week's worth of work, give or take. There's some other places you can go beyond, but I think you would really be stretching it if you went beyond a week with what we've talked about so far.
Okay, so if you were going to do this tour, is it
Mhm.
better to then I would assume fly back out of Fairbanks based on what we've done?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that because, yeah, so that is an option to save time. You can stretch your trip all the way to the end and fly some destinations direct from Fairbanks back home or to a hub, or you can fly direct from there, a quick little 40-minute flight back to Anchorage and catch your flight. And there's several of those leaving the other day. The dark horse, the wild card of this trip is what I didn't mention is now you can get on the Alaska Railroad and take that back south. And that's an entire day trip, but that will travel through a little bit of new area. It'll let you kind of recapture some of the stuff you didn't see. And that's a great way to end your last day in Alaska and to get back to Anchorage if you want to, or flip flop it is. Let's say you want to just take the train. You can actually stop on the train in Talkeetna. You can stop at Denali National Park. You can stop in Fairbanks. And so that's three of the destinations we talked about. You can take the train, get right off. I asked them about it. They said Fairbanks, Seward, and Anchorage all have, ramps that a person can go in a wheelchair, and the other smaller locations just have a lift that will lift you up and down. So you can do it just as easily as anybody else. And I personally really enjoy riding the train. It's really unique. It's the only flag stop train in the entire United States left. It's not like Amtrak or a lot of the trains you'll find in low freight. It's a totally different character, and it's worth it just doing that yourself.
And I would second that. Though Seward doesn't have Seward, they have a crank lift to get you off the train. Because I have a video. In fact, the town or the Visitors Bureau in Seward followed my wife and I around town shooting video at the Sea Life Center, and we getting off the train and we did a major marine tour. That's again, that's the other direction. We'll probably come on some of that in the next segment. But okay, so and I can't say enough about the train, and I would say that it is worth spending the extra for the Gold Dome service or the Gold Star service. I forget what it is, and they have an elevator. This is kind of amazing. Now my wife's not a little elevator person, so they took her chair up for her, but she worked her way up the steps rather than get it, because you have to be able to deal with confined spaces on the elevator. It's open above, but it's still pretty small. But they can take you and your wheelchair upstairs. They have downstairs. They have an accessible bathroom. They have accessible meal service. And I haven't gone north out of Anchorage, but we did the trip to Seward, and that was amazing. So it's one of those things you should, if you get to Alaska, it's one of those things that you should put on your list.
Absolutely.
And like I said, your first trip to Alaska, you better take a notebook, because you're going to have a lot of other things to go on that list. It's going to be a big list. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Do me a favor, if you haven't already done so, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell, so you'll know when I release another video. And we'll see you next time.